When we open our social media news feeds, we often think it's the genuine voice of the public in real time. Well, that may have been the case years ago, but now the truth is very different. Good evening, my name is Maja Mazurkiewicz and welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. Likes, comments, shares, they can all look organic, but very often, what appears to be widespread support or anger isn't spontaneous at all. It's the result of carefully designed influence operations that are fast, coordinated, and deliberately hard to detect. We often think that if many people react the same way to something, it must be true. Our guest talks about concrete influence operations targeting Poland, especially ones fueling hostility towards Ukrainian refugees. We'll find out how these narratives are injected into online debate, how they spread, and why they feel so convincing to everyday internet users.
Givi Gigitashvili, resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab. He investigates influence operations and social media manipulation across Eastern Europe and the South Caucasus. His work centers on identifying foreign information manipulation and interference, with a particular focus on safeguarding electoral processes and democratic institutions in the region.
Givi, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Maya. My pleasure to be your guest.
Influence operations and fueling the Polish information space, and around a month ago, there was a new case that you discovered in terms of Belarusian operations during the Polish elections that happened already, in some time ago last year.
Yes, that's true. And actually, this was announced by Meta itself, that they took down network linked to Russia and Belarus, and this network interfered into Polish elections. And then we had a chance to look at their posts and the messages, and there are a few observations that I think are relevant for your audience. So first of all, this network was not really creating fake videos or using deep fakes. They extensively leveraged the content which is already circulating in Polish information space. They just took these videos and gave captions and context in order to shape perceptions around these events. This can be, for instance, again, anti-Ukrainian narratives or activities of Civic patrol on the border. The second observation we had was that basically this network, which mostly operated on Instagram, started with apolitical content in order to grow the audience. And 2 months before elections, they started to push political content, which primarily intended to discredit political candidate Rafał Trzaskowski, and content which tried to discredit Trzaskowski was extremely homophobic. But they also published pro-Karol Nawrocki content, which basically was not as extensive as, let's say, discrediting content towards Trzaskowski. And they also used some digital manipulated images to place Trzaskowski at pride events that he never attended, for instance. And the content also demonstrated quite detailed local knowledge that's, I think, is difficult to fake, to be honest. They used even some very Polish cultural references, which resonate deeply with the Polish society. So,
and those content were created by them already? This content?
Yes, this content was mainly mentioned in the captions of the videos, which again, videos originate from Polish users, but captions were given by operators of this network. But also, one lesson from this campaign is that foreign actors extensively follow what's trending in Polish information space, and they use the videos disseminated by domestic actors for foreign interference, and especially this was used in the context of election interference.
And non-political content, what was that?
Non-political content contained videos of cats and different animals. Content was about tourism, for instance, which again was used just to gain followers and build some audience in order to have this audience already mobilized before starting political content. And this audience building stage lasted around 3 months. The most active phase of this network was from April 2025 until June, and it seems that the network itself was taken down sometime in summer. What we can say is that this network was active during elections, and also short time after elections, this network was still active.
And what was the biggest kind of followers accounts there in terms?
In terms of the audience, I don't think they were particularly successful in building this audience. I would say they had maybe around 5,000 followers. Again, these were not very politically concerned people. These were people who just started to follow them during this non-political stage of the operation, but then they were automatically exposed to political content as well.
So exactly the people that may be, triggered to one candidate or another in these terms and not following usually the political content. So it also means that they were very much specifically, right, on where they wanted to go. And
that's correct.
So that's one of the biggest influence operations that you recently discovered, but you already mentioned the citizen patrol movement, and that's also something that you are investigating.
Yes, that's correct. So my team has been focusing on some main events in Poland starting from last year, and then we scraped over 1 million social media messages and comments in order to observe the general trends. And one of the events around which we scraped this large data from social media was the activities of Civic patrol on Polish-German border. And what we found that what really appears to be some grassroots movement is actually triggered by coordinated manipulations. And then this is also the good example of how modern political mobilization works. This was not just about migration or situation on the border, but it's about like infrastructure of manipulation, which is used to, for instance, increase support to civic patrol or recruit people. So real people joined the ranks of Civic patrol, but in fact, the infrastructure which was used, meaning, let's say, fake and coordinated networks in social media or AI-generated images and images which were just aimed at triggering emotions, were used for this mobilization. And some of the most concerning for me observations were that the leaders of Civic patrol are using one Facebook page, and this is probably the most widely used page by the group by them. And this group had over 20 fake Facebook pages which impersonate Polish media outlets. This is the very explicit violation of Facebook's terms of services, and this is the coordinated inauthentic behavior. Apart from this, we saw that
So they were the real kind of Polish media that they had the fake accounts? Or they were?
Yes, these were fake accounts. I think, if I remember correctly, 22 pages impersonating TVN and other media outlets and TV channels. And they stopped posting activity a long time ago, but they still remain as the administrators of this Facebook group, which is used by leaders of Civic patrol. Another observation we had was that there was one super viral post, which was the explicit doxing of the female border control officer from Poland. And this viral post was published by seemingly fake account, and it garnered a really enormous amount of shares, and also people genuine users who saw these posts and also other similar content then started calling border control officers as traitors or sellouts and or using insulting language towards them. So this fake amplification or astroturfing around the campaigns which aimed at doxing border control officers, then just resulted in genuine users also, let's say, pushing more escalatory rhetoric towards them. We also noticed that, for instance, some high-ranking Polish politicians provided unverified information about certain events on the border.
Including MPs, right?
Yes. And then this actually triggered then more violent rhetoric, like calling for killing migrants or shooting them directly. And the problematic part here is that these reports that they amplified were then later debunked and then proved that these were not really real events, or these events were miscontextualized by these politicians. Some other, let's say, more like larger scale events, for instance, Confederation, a political party, organized rallies in over 70 cities in Poland. And this mobilization, of course, took place in social media. And what we observed is that leaders of this political party used images which were not related to migration and were not related to Poland at all. Some of these images which were circulating and was amplified by these party members were from France and from protests that took place here in France several years ago. And again, had no connection with migration, and also some AI-generated images that were used to announce the rallies and mobilize people were AI-generated just in order to, let's say, the trigger emotions, negative emotions towards foreigners. And also, another political party, Law and Justice, announced the referendum against illegal migration, and the members of this political party promoted this referendum with some AI-generated images, which portrayed migrants as a threat. And again, these were just people visible on this image, not really migrants. And then these were just absolutely unreal images that they included when they promoted this the referendum. So the real-world consequence of this is that we documented many calls for violence against migrants. I think society was more radicalized and more antagonistic towards migration issue. And also the Civic patrol is performing some activities which are just state responsibilities, and also social cohesion around this topic is, I think, undermined following this social media inauthentic amplification and digital manipulations of this topic.
Givi, thank you so much for showing us those tremendous influence operations that are happening in the Polish information space, and there is a lot of things to do, and I understand that we all can read it in the reports that you are creating. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
NGOs in Poland have been holding fundraisers to provide power generators to Ukraine as the nation struggles with blackouts and cold weather. These efforts were quickly targeted by a smear campaign led by far-right pundits. Let's take a look at how a disinformation watchdog managed to debunk their lies.
The charity organization Stand With Ukraine held a fundraiser in late January to purchase generators made by the Polish company Fogo and send them to Kyiv's municipal council. The campaign was a success, but soon allegations by a Polish right-wing politician, Liliana Wiadrowska, started circulating online.
The Polish generators are already being resold in Ukraine on the online marketplace OLX. Those banderites go big. How much money did you raise? 10 million zloty? That's heating for Kyiv for you.
But were the generators being sold online in Ukraine the exact same ones the charity purchased and shipped to Kyiv? We asked Demagogue, Poland's first disinformation watchdog.
We contacted Fogo, the manufacturer of the generator, who confirmed to us that that particular serial number, which was seen on one of the photos, was produced in 2024, and that wasn't one of the generators that were being donated as part of the fundraiser. We also contacted the person who was selling the generator, and they told us that they didn't get that particular generator as part of any sort of drive or charity, but they bought it also in 2024, much earlier than the generators that were a part of that particular action.
NGOs in Poland, like the Polish Center for International Aid, are required to keep track of the equipment they deliver to Ukraine.
We're monitoring everything, and also in the humanitarian aid we have something like audits. So always we check this. For example, we deliver some equipment to some hospital, and after half year or maybe 3 months, we back there and we see how we use it, that is used. And we always see that the equipment what we deliver is always used, and the people say they are really thankful.
But Wiatrowska was soon joined by Krzysztof Ator-Woźniak, a former journalist become YouTuber with a penchant for conspiracy theories, and far-right MP Włodzimierz Skalik, a member of the Confederation of the Polish Crown.
There are brands around. There is only one entity that this kind of narrative is beneficial to, and that's Russia.
On February 2nd, Poland's Governmental Security Center announced that 40 people in the country had died of cold exposure since November 1st. In no time, disinformation actors flooded social media with AI-generated imagery, blaming humanitarian aid to Ukraine for the deaths.
Who really decides which narratives become visible and which ones disappear? Do we count likes, shares, or followers? With our next guest, we'll talk about how engagement-driven systems can unintentionally boost manipulation, and why certain stories rise to the top, even if they are based on distortion or hate.
Alessandro Galeazzi, assistant professor at the Department of Mathematics of University of Padova. He is a researcher specializing in disinformation and online polarization. His work focuses on how social media and digital platforms influence public debate and democratic processes. He collaborates with international research projects that inform policy discussions on misinformation, information integrity, and healthier online information environments.
Alessandro, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today straight from Padova.
Hello.
We're talking today about content visibility and influence operations, and what content visibility mean in the context of an algorithms.
So, in the context of algorithms and social media algorithms, content visibility means how much the things a user write appear on other screen. Let me elaborate it a little bit better. When you write something on social media, the fact that this content appears to someone else in someone else's timeline that is seen by someone else is mediated by, this decision is mediated by an algorithm that can decide whether to show it on the top result of the timeline, on even a search result, and so on and so forth.
So what does your methodology specifically measure in this? Are those words, followers?
Okay, we measure the variation in visibility for different type of contents of users, and also at the network structure. So for a group of users. For example, you can have some type of content that the algorithm likes more, and so tend to boost it, and other that are reduced in visibility.
And you specifically work on two cases, right? So on the Ukrainian, Russian invasion into Ukraine, and on elections in the US. So what you discovered in there?
Yes. So, first of all, we discovered that we did this analysis on Twitter, now X, and we discovered that there is the algorithm tend to tend to show less, so reduce the visibility of any content that contains a link. And this is a bit straightforward to, let's say, because a link means an exit from the website, from the platform, okay? And Twitter and all the other platforms wants you to stay there as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And you discovered that the online polarization is fueled by the algorithms?
Online polarization might be fueled by the algorithm. Algorithms might increase or decrease sometimes in polarization. This is a debated question that also depends on the, let's say, cultural aspect of the debate, specific for each debate and for each.
So in your cases, in the cases that you measured,
topic. In the topic, in our case, we just saw that there is polarization, okay, and the algorithm didn't prefer one side with respect to the other side systematically. We just saw that some content, okay, some users from both sides were penalized individually. So, for example, some users were all the contents made by a user was shown a little bit less, sometimes even much more than a little bit, with respect to another user that is totally similar. Okay, maybe even with the same stance, with the same view. Okay, but it was not something done at the community level, let's say. Okay.
So what was actually fostering certain posts over the others?
The algorithm itself. The algorithm itself was, we scale for, of course, the popularity, because if I am a very big influencer, it's more likely that my content will spread around the platform. But there are techniques in which you can account for this, okay? And scaling for popularity and even comparing accounts that have the same level of popularity, so the same amount of followers and even the same role. Okay, so both are, for example, news outlets, or both are politicians. And you say that there are variation in the visibility of their content that you cannot explain in any other way that decision by the algorithm to reduce or boost the visibility. But sometimes might be even a side effect on how the algorithm is designed and how the algorithm learn user preferences. Okay, but the question is, we should be aware of this, and we should have the methodologies for testing this kind of effect. These things should be transparent. Okay, so we should be able to assess as a researcher, as a community. We should be able to assess whether an algorithm is boosting the visibility of one narrative with respect to the other, of one personality with respect to others, and so on and so forth. Okay.
And despite the wide research you did, it was impossible for you to make this assessment.
No, this assessment, I was able to make this assessment in this particular case. Okay, developing this methodology, but in general, it's very, very difficult for other platform. Is almost impossible to assess this kind of stuff because there is a lack of data. Okay.
Thank you so much, Alessandro, for a detailed explanation from the mathematical perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Now let's see how we can protect ourselves from AI chatbots.
What can you do to protect yourself from AI chatbots? Verify sources. Check whether the content is verifiable elsewhere. Look for signs of bias or hidden agenda. Think twice before sharing AI-generated outputs. Remember, If you trust everything an AI chatbot tells you, you risk being manipulated.
The loudest voice online isn't always the majority opinion. Sometimes it's a coordinated operation. So when hate starts to feel normal, pause and check what's really driving it. And as always, remember to keep calm and think deeply.